Hey, Tim Frisch with A Frisch Perspective. In this video, I'm going to be talking about a dynamic at play that could help President Trump to get reelected. So recently I did a video talking about dynamics at work that could help Joe Biden to win the election. And I know a lot of people who watch my videos probably aren't rooting for Biden. They would rather see Trump win this election. And I did want to do a video talking about, I think, some very good reasons why Trump could win this election, some dynamics at play that could really help him going into this election season. And it's something that I've observed with a certain segment of the population. Now, I do think Joe Biden has some things working for him, particularly all that anger and the hatred that a lot of people have for Trump, and they see everything through that lens. However, not everybody, even people that are more on the liberal side, look at things that way. And that is a big dynamic that I've been noticing. There are people that I would say are probably millennials in their generation. For example, Dr. Carlin Bursenko. She is an organizational psychologist, consultant, and executive coach. And she became pretty famous recently writing this article: after attending a Trump rally, I realized Democrats are not ready for 2020. I've been a Democrat for 20 years, but this experience made me realize how out of touch my party is with the country at large. So that article made a lot of waves, and she made media appearances after that, and I think she has a YouTube channel that's gotten pretty big. But what's interesting about her is that she went to this Trump rally, and it was in New Hampshire, which is where I live, by the way. So that was interesting that she's experiencing this right near where I live. And she went to this rally, and she really identified more as a liberal in her background, or more as a Democrat. But when she went to this rally, it just was not what she was expecting. And something about it really resonated with her and also made her think, wow, the Democrats are not going to win during this election. Now, I have to say, this was back in February, so a lot has changed since then. A lot has been going on, obviously. But even with everything going on, her viewpoint has really been changed and impacted by her experience at the Trump rally, as well as just what she's observing right now in the culture. And another person I think of is Tim Poole. He is also someone I think is a millennial. He is an American journalist, YouTuber, political commentator, and he has a YouTube channel as well. And what I find interesting about both of these people, again, he's someone who would have labeled himself more as a Democrat in the past and aligned himself more with liberal thinking. But recently Tim Poole came out and said that he is going to vote for Trump. I believe he actually stated that publicly now. And what I'm saying is, and these are just a couple of examples, these aren't necessarily people that would be conservative or classify themselves as evangelical Christian or anything like that. And yet, they are being drawn away from the left and where things are going on the left toward the right, and are planning to vote for Trump. Someone else who comes to mind is Dave Rubin, who actually calls himself a classic liberal, and yet he doesn't feel that where the left is going is something that he can identify with at all. So I just think there are a lot of people in our culture right now in this situation that really feel a lot like the people that I'm mentioning here. And I think what they're saying, first of all, is that they do not like the vitriol and the cancel culture coming from the left. Now, that isn't to say that there aren't very critical people on the right, but right now, with the dynamics of the culture, it seems like a lot of the canceling takes place in a certain direction, and that if you are a public figure and you say something that is not politically correct, you can very quickly be canceled and people will turn against you. So this is the kind of thing that I think a lot of the people I'm mentioning here are reacting to. It just doesn't sit well with them that our culture is becoming very judgmental in certain ways about how you look at things and the way you speak about certain things. So that's the first thing. They just don't like the vitriol and the cancel culture. Another thing I think people like this are concerned about is the tearing down of cultural infrastructure. Now, this is a big point of contention. Some people feel that our society just totally has to be revolutionized. Other people feel like we just need to change certain things, adjust certain things. The people that I'm mentioning, they may not be conservative, but they don't think we need to throw the baby out with the bathwater. So when you have revolutionary ideology like defunding the police or breaking down the nuclear family, disrupting the nuclear family as the Black Lives Matter organization purports to do, the blurring of male-female distinctions. I mean, even non-Christians on points like this feel like things are going too far. You don't have to be a Christian to look at some of these things and say, yeah, this doesn't seem right. And even non-Christians pointing out that some of the things that are being advocated today aren't even scientific. The way that we understand gender, male, female, is being challenged by an ideology that is not necessarily lining up with what science tells us. So there are people like I'm talking about here in our culture, they're not necessarily conservative, they're not necessarily Christian, but they just have a problem with the ideology that is so prevalent in our society right now. And they're concerned that the left is going to just continue to take this further and further, and it's going to devolve. One other thing that a large portion of our culture is concerned about is safety. When people watch the television and they see riots and they see looting and they see violence, it's very unsettling to them. And so I know Tim Poole was talking about how he has friends that are Democrats that are seeing things like this and they're moving toward Trump. And I think it's really out of that reaction of fear and wanting to have safety. Another example of that would be the issue with China. And we could definitely admit that Trump has talked pretty tough on China from the beginning, and he's someone who's been willing to challenge China. And now with things that are going on, people have a lot of troubling concerns about the country of China and how we're going to deal with them and interact with them. And so again, that's another area where people want to feel safe. China to them may feel like a great threat. And who is the president who is going to do a better job of handling something like our relationship with China? So to kind of summarize what I'm saying here, I think a lot of the dynamic that is working for Joe Biden is anger against Trump. And I said in that video that anger is a powerful motivator. But you know what another powerful motivator is? Fear. And I do think with what I'm saying here about concern over vitriol and cancel culture, the breakdown of cultural infrastructure, our safety as a nation, this conjures up a lot of fear. And what I really hear in people like I'm referencing here that aren't necessarily classically conservative is they are very fearful and concerned for where things are headed. And that is a dynamic that could really work for Trump. Remember what I said, I don't think it's so much about people necessarily moving this way or that way, and some people will. A lot of people, though, it's really a decision of, am I motivated to get out and vote? And anger could motivate certain people, but fear can definitely motivate a lot of people too. And there are a lot of people who have great concerns and fears over the direction things are going right now. And actually, people are concerned about where we already are. So it'll be really interesting to see how these dynamics shape, what happens over the next few months. But I definitely think Trump has a very good chance of winning. My point in the Biden video was to say it's not a done deal. I think Biden also has a shot at it. But there are so many things that you can't tell from the outside. You only know once the election takes place and you see how everything actually pans out. But I will say, and the point I'm really making here is that there is definitely a demographic of our culture, and they may have actually identified as Democratic in the past, but now they're saying, hold on, we've got to really re-examine where we're at right now and where things are headed. And they actually will give Trump credit for doing a lot of good things. I think a lot of us agree that Trump is by no means a perfect person, and we do not extol his virtues in the way that he's lived his life. And even some of the things he does and says now, cause a lot of people to shake their heads. But when you look at the options here, there are definitely a lot of people who would say, I would rather have Trump and the ideals that he is helping to uphold versus where things are headed on the Democrat side. There's so much more I could say about this, but those are just some of my thoughts that I wanted to share. I'd love to hear what you think in the comments below. And as always, thank you for listening to what I have to say from A Frisch Perspective.